Okay, good evening. Hope you've enjoyed the pizzas and you're still awake, which is good, and you're not hungry. I'm going to start by introducing Neeraj. So Neeraj is my QA lead at FlightGlobal. It's part of Read Business Information. We'll just tell you about that in a minute because it does line up with Elsevier. He wanted me to tell you that he's got the ISTQB certification and he's a certified Scrum Master. He's been with RBI since about June 2016, something like that, so a little over a year. And he's worked at a number of companies like Microsoft, Nokia, etc. He started off as a developer, so he spent 6 years on the dark side. Sorry, are there any developers in here? Oh, okay. Let me just rewind that one then. He spent 6 years developing and then about 7 years doing testing, which I think is really helpful because when you're talking to people who are developers, we're trying to be more collaborative, sometimes having that dev background just gives you that little bit of insight. So that's really helpful. And he's starting his journey as a speaker. So this is his first, it's not a conference, but first sort of public speaking event. So be gentle with him. And he started blogging as well.
Thanks, Steve. Hello, everyone. A very good evening to all of you, and thanks for joining this evening. I'd like to introduce my colleague, co-speaker, and my mentor, Steve Watson. Steve Watson is currently Director of Quality and Engineering at FlightGlobal. He's been with RBI for the last 10 years or so and joined FlightGlobal 8 months back. He has got overall more than 28 years of experience. So in a way, you can say that he's test industry veteran. He's a prolific blogger and conference speaker. He also enjoys mentoring upcoming speaker and test enthusiasts, and I'm one of the lucky ones. Yeah. And apart from that, he's also actively involved and organized radio talk show on weekly basis at his local radio station.
Indeed, yeah. Anyone who likes music, then I'd happy to have a chat later on about that. So enough of the intros. So what we're going to do this evening, we just want to tell you a bit about our story. So what have we been up to? Where have we come from? Where are we going? What are the challenges? And it really is a bit like this road. So we feel like we've kind of taken a few steps along the road to automation, but we know that where we want to be is somewhere well in the distance. But we want to be quite open and honest about where we've got to and the challenges, because I think there might be common challenges that other people have as well. And certainly we've already seen some slides, and it's answered a question we had earlier. Or it could be an answer to something that we're looking for. So we've made some progress. We've still got things we want to do. So we just want to take you through the journey that we've been on. So, Neeraj.
Yeah, so imagine you are going to start a very exciting journey, and you have packed up your stuff and you're just about to jump on your car, and you find your tire is flat. Of course, your car's tire is flat and your engine is broken down. So what are you going to do? How would you feel like this? Well, it's something same happened with me when I joined RBI. This is what I found. So I was given the responsibility to fix their defunct automation framework, which was basically testing the front end part of our UI or the websites. So there was kind of no proper documentation available, and the reason is that the developer who worked on this framework was no longer working with the RBI, and it was developed almost 2-3 years back, and nobody touched this code base for the last 2-3 years. So it was totally unmaintainable. It was dusting there. So anyway, I was given this responsibility, and I had to start somewhere. So I took this challenge and discussed this thing with my team members and with my mentors as well. So we set few measurable and achievable goals in the first 6 months, and these are the 3 goals which were kind of crucial for us to get success. The first goal was to revive this testing framework. The second goal was once we get it working locally on our machine, then to hook this entire test framework with TeamCity build pipeline. And then the biggest challenge was for maintaining and refactoring the feature files, which was written 2-3 years back. And since then, the product have evolved, so some of the feature files were no longer valid. So these were the goals, but there were definitely challenges in front of us. The challenges was like, as I already mentioned, there was no documentation available, so I had no idea literally where to start with. Then some of the feature files were very complex and no longer valid. Some of they were so complex that they were testing the business logic in the rather than testing at API level, they were testing the data on feature file itself, which made the problem a bit more complex. And the various packages and third-party tools which we were using in that automation framework was incompatible. So it was kind of reinventing the wheel. So these were the challenges I faced in the first 6 months. Yeah.
So in January this year, I moved internally from a group that I'd been in about 6 years. I fancied a new challenge. And I moved into FlightGlobal, and as the name suggests, we're dealing with a lot of data about aircraft, the aerospace industry. What we're serving are websites. So I came in and I've got a team of 5 people. Neeraj is my lead. My first question is, okay, so what's the state of our testing? And I realised that a lot of what we were doing was very manual, and it had been that way for quite some time. So I thought, well, that's what we want to do. We want to do automation, and we need to bake it in from the start, which is a noble aim. And we had a new project starting in January. Literally, I joined, and about a week later it was, yep, Sprint Zero starts. Okay, what are we doing about automation, and have we got anything in place? So I was keen that Neeraj should get involved with this project, which is $1 million. It's running throughout the course of the year as a rewrite. So he needs to do that, but actually he's still supporting the existing product that he'd been tasked with trying to get up to speed as well. Our teams are a little bit apprehensive. So what they'd seen was people coming in, writing some automation, going away. We'd had a churn of developers helping, testers had come in, we had contractors, so no documentation, and people sort of thought, yeah, we've been here before, we've seen people come in, write stuff, and then it just fails. I gave Neeraj my backing and I said, look, this is what we need to do. Let's try and sell the message. And we started to get into work on the automation, but obviously there's always challenges, and part of the story is telling you the hurdles we've overcome. So yes, I had 5 testers, but the only person with automation skills was, guess who? Neeraj. So I've got one guy on my team who can do automation. I'm thinking, right, okay, I've now split him 50-50, really. I've stretched him. We'd started automating late, so we were already a few sprints behind before we'd even started. The delays got worse and worse. So as well as trying to fix something for an existing product that's still out there and do the automation for a new project, there were some holidays, there was some sickness, all sorts of things. And we just kind of got to a point where we were so far behind. And we've got some issues with co-location. So obviously the Agile dream, everyone's co-located, right? Not so in our case. So we're based in Sutton, southwest London, and we've got an office in Heathrow. Our project team are all based in Heathrow, but Neeraj isn't because he comes in from East London, and that's a hell of a journey for him. And we don't believe in making people do 2-hour commutes each way just for the sake of it. But actually, what we found was the team had no idea what he was doing. We had the stand-ups every day, and I know because I went on some of them, you were telling the team what you were doing, and I think they were just forgetting. So what happened is a lot of the devs were making code changes and just forgetting about the testing. So they just completely forget that what they're going to do is break something. So every day Neeraj is coming out going, they've broken it again. And it just kept going around and round. So in May, recruited a new tester who actually had good skills. And I deliberately put here technical and analytical skills, because I don't mean to be funny, but if you say you're a tester and all you can do is write code, you ain't a tester, you're a developer. You have to have the analytical skills. I needed someone who's a good all-rounder. I managed to find a guy who could come in, pick up our existing Selenium WebDriver framework, who knew Java, so he could switch to C#, that's fine. And he took over the stuff that Neeraj had been trying to fix from last year. What this meant was then we've got Neeraj focused on just one thing, which is great. But it still doesn't solve the complete issue. So what we said was you really need to embed with the product team. How do you feel about going across to Heathrow every day? That's not feasible. Could you do 3 days a week? Neeraj agreed that he could do, and actually straight away, just having somebody there 3 out of 5 days sitting with the team makes a huge difference. It increased the visibility, and conversations started to happen. We've actually had some really positive breakthroughs just by the fact that the team have seen a bit more about what he's been doing, and they're starting to take more of an interest.
Interesting.
Which has been really good. And I think what they can see that they couldn't before is they can see the value that the automated tests actually have that Neeraj has been writing. So every day he'd been running tests and no one had actually seen the results. But now they're sitting with him and can actually see the value. That's a game changer.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. So from this point onward, I would like to give you some high-level overview how our current framework is structured. It's basically our framework can be divided into 3 layers. The top layer is kind of very human readable form, contains all the feature files of a particular product and having all the scenarios and acceptance criteria. For those who are not familiar with feature files, I'm sure most of them are standard kind of BDD way of doing the software development. Then we have middle layer, which basically just handles the assertion and the logical test step definition or code behind of the feature files. And the heart of this framework, which basically does the real thing, is the service layer, which provides services to the top layer, whether it's middle layer or top layer. It contains all the utilities classes and all our page object model, which represent or model the DOM of various pages of our websites, and also handles some common functionality like page scrolling or finding a particular element or writing file operation, capturing screenshots, etc. So this is how our framework is designed. If you go into the solution structure, then this is how our complete test suite looks like. So we have got various products under FlightGlobal portfolios, and then we have this complete entire solution, and each project under this solution represent a different functionality. So we have got internal APIs as well as public front-end API, which is being used by which other third parties which consumes our services. So we have our REST APIs test suite under this API project. Then we have got separate build task project, which basically deals with the setting up all the TeamCity configuration and running the build. And then we have some common pages, which is common across all the projects or products, and then core functionality, which contains a lot of useful elements and other key functionality. And then we have various projects which represent product and contains all the feature files and equivalent step definition and other functionality or logical assertion against each acceptance scenarios, acceptance criteria for that particular product or for that particular feature. And to give you some little bit idea how we have done it and how we have written it, is just I've taken very simple example from our ongoing project, which is basically valuation, carrying out the valuation of aircrafts or engine, air engine, etc. So as you can see, this is this talks about the feature where we are testing the valuation when a customer who have got the valuation subscription and want to see the valuation page of a particular model of particular engine by particular manufacturer. So it's a very simple scenario where you see that in this scenario, the acceptance criteria is that you log in as a user who have got relevant subscription, and you enter the relevant information for which you want to carry out the valuation. Then when you run the valuation on that web page, then you will see as a user this information on a valuation page. And this is something, this is kind of video capturing how it works in real time. So
let's see if we can get this to run. Oh, almost. Hang on, where did that go? Come on. I don't like this mouse pad. Come on.
Yeah, so this is launching a browser and then performing the action which we have defined in that feature file. Here you see that user is entering his credentials. He's shown the front page. Now he's entering the relevant detail under relevant section of the web page. And there are a lot of background processing and AJAX call. And then once it gets the all information about that particular type of engine, it shows this information and along with the dates that this valuation was done or performed on this particular date, and these are the values and their trends, how it's gonna appear in future. So that's one of the very sample use case we have.
I thought we'd put that in because when you read something a bit dry, you can't really get a sense of what we're trying to achieve here. But this just gives you an idea, just one of the tests that we need to do. And if you're trying to do all these manually, it just takes so much time, which is why we've got to do this automated. We're making changes to this all of the time as well. So we've got to keep on top of this. So what do we think the achievements are? Where have we got to so far? Stable and reliable test results. So one of the big problems we had were a lot of the tests were failing, not just due to the fact that the application had moved on since they'd been written, but we'd hard-coded results. So there was something I came across back in March on the existing application that said, oh, the age of an aircraft, and they hard-coded the age. But every month it gets a month older, right? Yes. So the test's going to fail. So, okay, we're going to have to sort out what we're doing with the test data. Where do we get our expected results from? So we had to have a bit of a rethink. So we tried to make them a lot more stable. So page object model, the fluent weight feature, and dry and solid principles. Neeraj, do you want to just go through what you did?
Yeah, I mean, well, whoever have dealt with this, working with Selenium, so everybody is familiar with this. That page object model gives you a nice way of modeling your page which you are testing and keeping the logic behind the scene. And then obviously if your website is using heavily AJAX calls and doing a lot of background processing and having asynchronous API call behind the scene, then obviously you can't simply put thread.sleep or implicit wait. You need to be a bit more smart how to deal with those DOM element and which are timely dependent. So we use fluent way to deal with that sort of situation. And of course, we are writing code. It doesn't matter whether it's a test code or whether it's a production code. It has to be a well scalable modular code. So obviously we used some of the best practices wherever it's possible and follow dry principle, do not repeat yourself, do not reinvent yourself. If something is already there, then reuse that code. And then solid principle, everybody knows. If somebody wants more insight into it, we can take it from later on after the talk. Yeah, but we deal our test code as a production-like code, not just second-class citizen.
Nice, it is there. So one of the things that we did was, once we'd embedded Neeraj into the team, we went over and ran a session in the Heathrow office. And we said, right, we're going to actually take you through the whole framework. We're going to do a demo to all of the team. Ended up being most of the developers. Yeah. Just so they can actually see it, and we can run the test, much as we did here with the recording, but actually to get them to see, what are the tests doing? What's our coverage like? How have we achieved this? So an achievement for me really is having Neeraj there 3 days a week. And I know it's a pain. And we said we'd review at the end of September and see how it's working. But actually the visibility of you being there within the team has meant that he's not getting forgotten. Testing is actually kind of being elevated a little bit. Developers took a keen interest in the automation. They're starting to ask questions, starting to give us feedback. That's good. That's a good thing. Developers are expert at writing code. And we're not as testers generally, but we're expert at working out what we need to test. So why do we not come together more? And we're starting to see that. And actually one of the developers in this session that we had, we booked an hour and a half and we finished after nearly 3 hours. That's how long it went because of the discussion. And one of the devs sat there and said, can we not have a smoke test pack to run on every build? Yes, that's exactly what we want. Okay, how long does your build take? 40 seconds. Okay, what's an acceptable time to wait until the tests are finished? Maybe 2 minutes. Okay, so we need to identify the tests that can run in that period. How about you devs work with Neeraj to determine what those tests should be and help refine it? Fantastic, and that's the sort of collaboration that we want to see. And that's brilliant. We've implemented developer and tester huddles, so now when we get any stories that are picked up, we've got another tester who's working on the project, but he's manual. He doesn't have any automation experience, but he can still get involved in talking to a developer about the story. There's no reason that he can't do it. Pair programming, Neeraj, you've done some of that. Probably more around the automation, but pairing with the developer and saying, well, this is what I'm going to do with the automation. Is this good practice? Can you help with this? And we're trying to run the full regression pack every night to make sure that we don't break existing features. And we've been doing that for quite some time now, but just the number of completed tests has grown incrementally. So there, I think, the list of achievements that we've got to. And it might sound quite basic, and some of you might be sitting there going, oh, we've done it years ago. But not everybody is as mature as everybody else. Everyone has different challenges. And you may find that, like us, you get to where you want to be. But someone leaves the company and only that one person knows what's been written, you're going to go back to square one very, very quickly. And that's something that we've seen here. So you might be there already, but don't be complacent because it can happen. So challenges.
So these were the achievements we have achieved so far, but still there are challenges in front of us which we are trying to address on a daily basis. So the first challenge is about timing. So as she mentioned, recently we had discussion with developers who are working on the new features, and we agreed that they are also going to participate in writing the feature file or writing the test code. But at the same time, there was a concern which was raised that if developers start writing or devoting their time in writing the test case, then obviously it's gonna hit the velocity of the sprint. So we have agreed to certain extent, and we are trying to find out the right balance about how we can best utilize the time of developers as well as the tester to get the maximum throughput. Another challenge is visibility. We have addressed this issue. So initially there was a challenge because I was working on a different location and team was sitting at a different location. There was a not miscommunication, but communication gap was there, but we rectified it. Now I started I'm more gelled with the team now. So they know what I'm doing, and I know what they are doing, and also it gives me the right, right platform to discuss more in a natural way rather than on Skype or on phone. This is one of the our pain point at this point of time. We have got our build pipeline working, automation working, we are running overnightly. But in terms of the visibility of the test results, showing it to outside audience, we haven't got the right meaningful way of displaying that information to outside audience or business stakeholders. We are still collecting them. Like, we have got rudimentary TeamCity test results, but that doesn't serve our purpose. So we are still looking for something like some plugin or some way of putting that information in the right way so that it can serve the audience in a meaningful way. So if you guys know something useful, then you are welcome to share your experience.
Please, we're really struggling.
And then, yes, another challenge is about skills. So at the moment, we have 2 testers who have got automation skills in our team, but we are trying our best to skill up the manual tester so that they can start working towards these areas and start picking up some basic fundamental stuff, and like fixing some of the broken tests or identifying the issues, so that it can free up my and other testers' time to do something more for towards automation side. So these are some of the challenges we are still trying to address and working on them.
So I mean, the bottom one is particularly pertinent because it's very hard if you come from a manual testing background and someone says, hey, are you interested in learning automation? Most people will say yes, because it's a good career move, but how do you start? It's really hard to learn coding from scratch, particularly when you've got a day job to do. So actually, how do we free someone up enough to pair with someone else to pick up the knowledge they need? Where do you start? Has anyone done a training program from scratch? How long does it take? So there's a number of things that we have around the skills challenge. So just to wrap this up, I think we've been very open about our journey. We've got issues. Clearly, we've had issues. We still have some issues. We're not where we want to be. But we are seeing some improvements. And I was really, really hugely encouraged by the attitude of our developers to actually come to us and go, we want to do some of this. This looks really good. We see the benefits. So we feel kind of optimistic, despite the fact that we've got some issues and challenges that we need to overcome, that we're moving into a new phase of the project. We feel that we're actually on the right track. We're not having somebody sitting over there doing automation away from the main bulk of the work. It's actually embedded. We feel that it's got much more traction and it will be much more successful. So that's our story. That's where we've got to. So thank you for listening. Probably doing questions later, but there's our contact details. So please feel free to reach out to us at any point. If you have got ideas that could help us, hints, tips, we'll take anything just to help us get advanced a bit quicker. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.